Hi, everyone. Happy Friday. I'm Neka Chiazor, Vice President, Public and Government Affairs with Cox Communications, and I am in good company today with a number of great leaders, esteemed leaders in Virginia, who are poised and prepared to talk to us today about how to thrive in the age of COVID-19. I have a number of esteemed guests, but first, I'd love to introduce you to Stephen Morel. Where's Stephen? Stephen! Hey,
Hi,
Stephen.
Neka. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Well, I'm doing okay, all things considered.
All right. Well, I'm sure you're doing more than okay. I remember last year, Virginia Business voted you as the #1 business leader of the year, right? Do you remember that?
I do. It seems like a long time ago now.
And if you remember also, the Virginia Asian Chamber of Commerce also awarded you the best business partner for the Asian community in Virginia for the year 2019.
Well, I remember you got a big award that night from them as well.
Hey, I was just standing
Let's
behind.
don't forget that.
Let's not forget that. And it's interesting because fast forward right now we are in these interesting times. But last year was a big year for Virginia, in no small part due to your efforts, right? So I know your team played a critical role in bringing Amazon's HQ2 down to Virginia and all the businesses that attracted. Talk to us about how COVID-19 might be impacting your continued efforts to bring new businesses to our Commonwealth.
Well, it's definitely had a big impact on Virginia, as it has with other states across the country. Our biggest concern at the moment is really helping our existing businesses to make it through this. Obviously, those that have been directly impacted by social distancing, many of them have had to shut down, at least temporarily, others operating at a very small percentage of what they would normally operate. So we've actually re-geared quite a bit of our activities to be able to support the COVID-19 response efforts of the Commonwealth. We're, for example, leading the economic impact efforts for the state. We're helping advise the governor and the Secretary of Commerce and Trade and others on potential state and federal initiatives that can help provide relief to businesses directly impacted by this. We're also looking at how we can accelerate economic recovery on the back end.
Very good. Well, definitely, I want to say thanks to you, our state and federal partners, for all you've done to support small businesses at this time. Definitely a huge shout out to you for that. So more on, COVID-19 and its impact. What industries are you anticipating being most impacted by COVID-19 right now?
Sure. Well, certainly by far the biggest impact from a percentage perspective is the hospitality sector, including restaurants, hotels, entertainment venues, and so forth. Absolutely devastating impact for them. Most of all the employment in those sectors has been laid off at this point, not just in Virginia, but in most other states. I think trailing the hospitality sector, next up would be the retail sector, particularly those smaller businesses, really, really heavily impacted there. And then after that, one of the somewhat surprising, at least initially, sectors that's been heavily impacted is healthcare. The governor, I think, very appropriately put a freeze for a period of time on elective surgeries for a variety of reasons, but I think in large part to be able to protect the availability of personal protection equipment, or PPE, for first responders and healthcare providers. But that actually obviously resulted in significant layoffs as well. I think they were unavoidable. But those are certainly three of the top sectors that have been impacted. What's happened more as time has gone on is that those businesses that weren't necessarily directly impacted by social distancing requirements, but are being impacted by a drop in consumer confidence, a drop in, for example, purchases of durable goods and so forth, you're seeing a cascade into other industry sectors as well. So manufacturers going into at least temporary layoffs, a variety of other companies across other industry sectors. Really almost no industry sector has been untouched. Certainly some, like the federal government, like utilities, like data centers, largely unimpacted from an employment perspective, but the vast majority of industries in Virginia and across the country have experienced at least some level of layoffs.
Wow. Serious stuff for serious times. Well, you know what? We have some other folks who are going to be joining in on our conversation today. I'd love to bring them in, and I'll introduce them one by one. So with us, we are also in good company with Miles Leon. Where's Miles? Hey, Miles. Miles Leon is president and chairman of SL Nusbaum Realty Company. We also have in good company with us today, Gil Bland. Where's Gil? Bland. Hey, Gil. I always have to wave to you. I don't know why. Gil Bland, President, Urban League of Hampton Roads. Taylor Adams. Taylor Adams, Executive Director, City of Virginia Beach Economic Development. Best and the brightest. Love you, Taylor. And last but not least, Nicole Riff. Nicole, where are you? Chief Strategy Officer for the Hampton Roads Economic Development Alliance. And so welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. And I'm pleased to be in good company with all of you. We were talking a little bit, Stephen and I, about, the impact of COVID-19, big picture on the Commonwealth and the economy. But I'd like to segue a bit before we jump into deeper conversation on the impacts of COVID-19 on you personally. Right. So there's a quote that I will call from, and it says, "These times don't make character, it exposes character." And there's another quote that has stuck with me, and that is, "Bad times show good leadership." And so with that, I wanted to hear from each of you, one word that you would say describes how this ongoing crisis has impacted you personally as leaders. Okay, Stephen, you're smiling, so I'm going to.
It's hard to pick one word. I guess what I would think of is either maybe humility or being reflective. Humility in that there's really a recognition that our public leaders at multiple levels have to make some very difficult trade-offs, where while there may be decisions that are the best decisions to make, they all have significant consequences. I was listening to another, I forget which state, but the governor of another state on the radio this morning, who was talking about choosing between multiple bad options. I think also just being reflective from the perspective that a country like ours, with the wealth and intellectual horsepower and the power over all the United States, the fact that we would be in this position and not better prepared for it is something that I'm concerned about, and I hope all of us will be better prepared in the future.
Nicole, just thinking about what you just asked, I guess the first word that comes to my mind regarding this COVID crisis is interdependence. And that's the need, not just the want to work together with others. I'm reminded of working together with others on a daily basis. And, I would liken it to a familiar phrase that we often use in the Urban League, and that is, when we talk about our neighborhoods, interdependence also means it takes a village.
It does take a village.
Nika, I tell you what comes to mind for me is an appreciation for wellness, healthiness, something that I think I took for granted, but we're all dealing with something we never thought we'd be worried about in our health system and health providers around the country. We have a whole new appreciation for how that has to work together and how that has to work in really a better fashion too going forward.
Appreciation. You're absolutely right, right? Who knew that health, something as simple as riding your bike is not that simple anymore. How about you, Nicole? What's your word?
I would echo a lot of the comments that have already been made. I'm feeling a great deal of gratitude right now. I actually landed in the Hampton Roads region, kind of peak crisis, just moved here from Texas. And I really am grateful, for the opportunity to live in a region that truly is collaborating together and addressing the crisis together at a regional level. And, really looking toward a holistic approach to benefit everybody here in all the localities, all the communities, to make sure that everybody comes out of this stronger than they were before. And to echo some of the health related comments, definitely grateful that we all have our health, that we're all employed. I know there are a lot of people that are dealing with much more challenging situations, and very grateful to be in a situation where I'm able to help in some way.
Thank you. Taylor.
Sure. So again, just going off of everything that's been said thus far, what Miles said around regarding health and just sort of wellness resonates with me, but particularly economic wellness. And when I think about our local economy, one of the things that just going back to what Stephen said just a little earlier, I mean, hospitality is one of the cornerstones of the Virginia Beach local economy. And and certainly it's been decimated here. But even in that moment, we're seeing that there are other parts of our economy, and that our underlying economic condition outside of hospitality is actually quite strong. And so, the thing that jumps out to me that we're learning, I think, real time every day during this crisis is the need for diversity of use within our economy. We see our manufacturing sector continues to be strong, and actually we're still seeing a lot of interest for expansion in that space. I think professional office is going to be forever changed on the back end of this. However, we're still seeing fairly strong occupancy. We're hearing from folks in the region that they're not planning on laying folks off in that space. They still think they have enough work to keep their folks engaged. So for me, it's understanding that it takes a number of economic uses, and it takes a lot of diversity within our local economy and regional economy to maintain health, and so that's where we're at today.
Well, thank you for sharing that. And just full transparency for all of you, my word is inclusion. One of the things that has surfaced for me is the importance of really bringing people together, making sure that voices are heard and perspectives are also listened to at this time, right? So to Gil's point about it takes a village, it absolutely takes a village, and bringing people into the village. So thank you for sharing your word.
Nick, I was just going to add on your word that one of the, we've been leading economic impact analysis for the Commonwealth. And one of the things that we've looked at is how this whole pandemic has impacted not just different companies and regions, but also different individuals. And one of the things that's become very clear is that overall, while this has impacted every corner of our economy, the overwhelming impact has been on lower income and minority populations, largely because of the nature of occupations that they've tended to hold in the Commonwealth. And that's something we've been giving a lot of thought to, is how can we best respond to many of those populations that are in a sensitive or challenged economic position.
Well, you bring up a good point, right? Like unemployment has skyrocketed across the country, right? And it does tend to impact more those who are socially disadvantaged or on the other side of the economy. And so, Gil, I know you've spoken a lot about this at the Urban League. What's the Urban League's perspective on this situation at this time?
Well, there's any number of opportunities to get involved and engage with our community, as you would expect. But we have primarily focused on the wellness and safety of our underserved communities. And in that vein, we've joined one of the nation's largest healthcare organizations, Centera. And we've formed a bridge with the faith community. And we have engaged in COVID-19 testing in a number of our underserved communities. That includes the public housing neighborhoods. It includes homeless shelters, as well as senior citizens. So we've attempted to bring testing to folks who may not otherwise have that opportunity.
Right.
It's
and
been
talk about
something we've done statewide now.
Talk about testing. Is it right? I hear you have like a drive-by donation event coming up. Do you want to talk to us about that? Is that testing, or what do you have coming up May 3rd?
Well, that's a wonderful collaborative event with other community leaders. We are working with some of the Filipino community leaders in Virginia Beach, the Latino leaders in the Urban League, and our local food bank. And Centera will be out doing testing. We'll have food giveaways. It'll be a fun time. As long as supplies last, there'll be a lot of the PPE equipment, gloves and masks available. So we're hoping to bring a community gathering and a show of unity and working together across ethnic lines, and also do some good.
Do some good. You're in good company.
That'll be this Sunday.
This Sunday. All right. Now, Miles, sorry, Taylor, were you going to jump in? Jump in, Taylor.
I want to jump in on the inclusion piece and just build off of both what Gil and Stephen said, to sort of put some data behind a couple of those comments. Really interesting. We find here in Virginia Beach that both advanced manufacturing and hospitality pay about the same thing at the entry point. If you look, according to the Virginia Employment Commission, that's about $361 a week. But what's great, if we stay with that same employee for 5 and then 10 years, we find that 5 years later, that employee in hospitality is making essentially the same thing. We find that income is doubled in advanced manufacturing at 5 years. And if we see a mature employee in advanced manufacturing, we see that in Virginia Beach, that pays on average $954 per week. And that's straight out of the Employment Commission's data. So to your point about inclusion, I will tell you, inclusion as it relates to having full access to our economy and really to what is jobs that can offer not just employment, but can offer a career, really are something that we've got to focus on coming out of this crisis.
I agree. So, but when we talk about inclusion, right, we often think about people, right? How do we bring people in? How should we think about inclusion, Miles, when it comes to commercial real estate, right? We're now in this age of social distancing. Most people are out of office buildings. How does commercial real estate come back into the village? How do you see that working?
Well, there's not a playbook for this one. So our firm is involved with a lot of real estate, commercial real estate in the Mid-Atlantic, apartments, shopping centers, office buildings. And the firm's been around since 1906. We've made it through the Great Depression, stock market crash, more recent recessions and so on, but we've never seen anything like this before. So we're learning as we go. So it's important that we figure out a way that we can operate our business. We're employing a lot of people. We're having to pay a lot of bills. We pay a lot of small vendors, contractors, all kinds of folks. We've always been ready for big storm events and hurricanes and things like that to go remote and run our business. But we've never had to go this long remote. So we're classified as an essential business, but we never figured that we would need to send everybody home and operate our business, which we're doing well remotely. But there's so many challenges to make sure that we can still take care of our residents, our tenants, and so on. So we're doing as best a job as we can. But again, there's no playbook for this.
No playbook.
If I could
Nicole?
add something
Yeah,
to
go for it.
So just a couple pieces. First of all, I actually live in an Ethel Nusbaum property. I haven't lived in an apartment in years. And I have to say the way that they've managed this crisis has been very impressive. Obviously, all the amenities for residents are not accessible right now, but they're doing a lot to continue to engage us and feel like we're part of the community and doing what they can to provide amenities that are not something where you're standing next to somebody basically in the apartment complex. And we as an organization here at the Alliance, we're really starting to talk about what the office market is going to look like moving forward. Prior to the crisis, we were already looking at doing a general office study of the Hampton Roads region and finding out what our assets are and how we can better market them to certain types of industries and certain types of office products. That being said, that's evolved now. We're already engaged in that study. And what we really want to know is what will the office of the future look like? You have one side of us that's thinking, we may be able to shrink office spaces and save money. But on the other side, you actually may need additional space because people have to be more spaced out. They're not able to share a desk, obviously, if you're trying to keep things hygienic. So I think we're trying to learn a lot about that. I think we as Hampton Roads will be really uniquely positioned to capitalize on a lot of that in the future. We have some great office product, obviously, here in the region. We have some great places for people to live that would be working in those positions. And I think that we've really shown through this crisis that people can really live and work anywhere. So why not live and work here? So I think that'll be a big part of our marketing strategy moving forward.
I love your comment about Office of the Future. And I've been following the data, the survey that you guys put out, Hampton Roads Economic Development Alliance. They put out a great survey. And I think the survey results showed 80% of business leaders had the economy as top of mind. But as we think of the office of the future, the workplace of the future, Miles, do you see a shift in the business models for those who are in the property development space to accommodate that office of the future that Nicole described?
Well, it's an interesting question. We developed in 2008, the Wells Fargo Center downtown Norfolk, about 250,000 square feet of office space, and then retail and apartments that surround that. And our office that we built for our business today people would label it as a very traditional private office settings, not as much open office space as you're seeing in recent years with companies. A lot of our competitors have developed new office space for themselves where you've got open office plans and so on. So we've been questioning ourselves up before coronavirus about how traditional an office space we had. Maybe that was going to hurt us, but after we're going through this, we've realized we may be sitting pretty good, because I think people are going to go back to more traditional office, spaced apart, like was mentioned earlier, with social distancing and so on. So I think there's going to be a return to a lot of traditional things we used to do. So there's all kinds of changes, I think, they're going to take place. I think the biggest issue for us, getting back to business like everybody else in the world, is how are you going to go back to any place you work or live if you can't get a good comfort level on whether you have the virus or somebody else has the virus that you're going to come to work with, until there's a vaccine or some testing available. We can open up the state and we can open up the country, but from a human instinct standpoint and behavioral standpoint, you're going to question where you go and where you go to work and where you go shopping until somebody can give us some assurances, some confidence that we're not going to get sick.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. I mean, so let's talk about, thank you for opening the door, Miles, to reopening, right? That's like the buzzword. What does reopening mean to each of you? I've heard different definitions. Is reopening post-COVID? Is reopening post-pandemic? What does it mean to you?
Well, I can tell you that our firm is we're very fortunate. I'm amazed at how our staff folks have been able to get our business done remotely. We probably want to be the last company to go back and open up, because the last thing we want is a few people getting sick and then we're having to shut down our company because we opened up too soon. We may do it in partial incremental phases, or different days of the week people may come back and so on. But we want to be the last to show up, quite frankly, to make sure we can keep our operation going.
Got it. Who else wants to go last?
Well, I'll take it from a slightly different tack. A lot of our focus is on minority, underserved communities, and I think we'll all defer to the science and to our governmental officials as to when we reopen. But our concern as a kind of a one-stop source of information and help assistance to businesses is, will they be prepared with resources to reopen? And I have a great concern. I've been a business owner myself for 3 decades, and I fear that a number of companies probably have exhausted their resources, and without significant intervention and support, that will include counseling, that will include financial resources, that we will see a number of businesses who will not be able to reopen. And I have a great fear of that. And we're trying to position ourselves to be a point of help in that regard.
So you raise a good point, Gil, about businesses not being able to reopen, right? So
I mean, just to amplify, many of our small businesses don't have traditional banking relationships. They're really unknown if they have banking relationships at all. And these are folks who kind of focus under the radar, but yet they are invaluable in terms of providing services and products to our community. and they don't have a lot of alternatives, and they certainly don't have a balance sheet and what we would in accounting call retained earnings to survive being out of business for more than a few weeks.
And so, based on what Gil just shared, Stephen, I'll start with you and I'll follow up with Taylor. What sort of programs or initiatives do you have, or do you envision would be able to support some of these businesses that Gil described?
Well, I think first of all, we have to have the conditions in place to support reopening, right? And that means more widespread availability of testing. It means contact tracing. It means healthcare capacity sufficient to handle any potential secondary surge. It means a sufficient supply of PPE for our hospitals, healthcare providers, and first responders. So that's kind of a foundational piece. The second piece is providing guidelines to businesses to help them to be able to operate safely once they reopen. When you think about restaurants, entertainment venues, and so forth. And then we really get into the economic recovery and relief aspects around how can we help businesses get through this difficult period of time, and then help with dollars to help them get restarted, to bring back employees, to bring back inventory and so forth for retailers. So there are a lot of pieces to this that are involved. The federal government is going to have a very big role to play. Very appreciative of the great work of our congressional delegation with multiple rounds of support with the CARES Act and so forth. That's made a really big difference. There's still a need to provide funding for states and localities, because in the absence of that, you're going to see states and localities have to have to go through significant layoffs, which would then further exacerbate the recession and lower demand for small businesses. So there's a whole bunch of these different pieces that really have to work together. Fortunately, there's a lot of great people at the state level that are working on this issue. VDP is a big part of that, but there are literally probably a couple dozen other agencies involved in putting those plans together.
I think Stephen really did a great job of summing it up. I'll just add a little local perspective to it. One, on the benefit side, we were so grateful to our own city council here in Virginia Beach and to our development authority for allowing us to take $1.5 million worth of incentives money through our economic development investment program that was appropriated for this year, and turn that inward to offer business assistance in amounts up to $10,000 per business. And we're the application period for that starts on Monday, but we think that's a way that we can offer a benefit to our existing business community and do everything that we possibly can to help as many businesses in that space make it through this crisis as possible. But also, if I could just add on to what Stephen said about the importance of a state and local government assistance package. What a lot of people don't realize is almost really not just in Virginia, but almost any city in America, the municipality will be one of the 10 largest employers in the community. And that's certainly true here in Virginia Beach. Also add on to that through the a capital heavy, basically a capital infrastructure heavy city like Virginia Beach. Well, we're the largest buyer of general construction services in Hampton Roads. People don't realize that. And so, but if our budget is affected and we're in a position where we have to delay or terminate some of the construction that we planned on doing as it relates to roads, and obviously the Commonwealth and the federal government are partners for us, and that's from the funding of those projects as well. But if those projects are terminated, then basically what you do is you take what is now a recession that's specific to, call it high street retail and to hospitality, and you start spreading it to other sectors of our local economy, and it can very quickly spiral out of control. So I think Stephen hit the nail right on the head.
Got it. And I see we're coming up to the end of our time, but I want to close with one final question before I wrap it up. Nicole, so one of the other data points I got from the Hampton Roads Economic Development Alliance survey is that 50% of the CEOs and business leaders surveyed wanted virtual forums such as this, right, to learn about how to thrive in the age of COVID-19. And since that survey, there have been a couple of things that have happened in the market. For example, Blue Jeans is now in an acquisition transaction. We've also seen Google Meet has made their services available for free. Do you see this becoming more of the trend? So while Miles is talking about, right, real estate commercially going to traditional, going back to the future in a sense, what do you see happening on the technology side?
we absolutely see the shift moving toward virtual life, basically. So our region really understood that that was going to be a necessity at the outset of this crisis. So we have actually worked regionally with all of our regional partners. You've got both workforce boards, Old Dominion University, Reinvent Hampton Roads, a lot of our local chambers, all involved in standing up our platform, 757recovery.com. And we've been hosting forums every week where we have experts that are providing excellent advice and guidance to all of our local business community throughout the crisis. We have since pivoted to providing advice on reopening. So to echo some of the comments from before, we really need to understand what we need to do for reopening. And a lot of that's going to be very industry specific. So we are currently developing plans with industry input to provide very targeted advice and guidance that our local business community can use moving toward reopening here, which is very exciting.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah, Nick, I would also just add, I have no empirical evidence to support this, but my sense is that, particularly in the hospitality industry, we will not reopen and do business as we did in the past. It will be a different expectation from the consumers and from the tourists. For those who depend upon colleges, for example, for their business, I just think that businesses will have to be very quick to react and adapt to a different expectation from the consumer and the communities over the next few months. It's my hope that we return back to business as it was pre-COVID. But I would think in the initial stages of reopening, you'll see quite an evolution of what the expectation is from the consumer and how businesses will react to it. Stephen, you may have some opinion on that, but I just don't see business reopening as usual.
Right.
I agree.
Well, so Stephen, I guess I'll start with you as we wrap. If there was one thing that you'd like our viewers to take away in terms of a significant action they can take at this time towards thriving in COVID-19, what would it be? And then I'll go round the
Well,
screen.
so first of all, Virginia is going to come back strong, and we're going to come back stronger than before. So I think the most important thing is for folks to keep hope alive. This is a very difficult situation, but it's not going to last forever. We've got some great leadership at the state level and partnering with great leaders at the local and regional levels. We're going to come out of this stronger than before. I would just encourage folks to plan ahead, both at a personal level and a business level, but also have hope because we are going to get through this together.
Thank you. Miles?
I tell you, I'm betting on America. We can solve anything. We've been through numerous pandemics over many, many years. We're going to figure this thing out. I'm very positive about the future. We're going to come out of it stronger. We've just got to be patient, be smart, and let our leaders and researchers and scientists and healthcare officials help us get through this thing, and we'll come out better for it.
What I am most encouraged about is kind of the concept that I started with. I've not seen any time in my life where people have come together, so many disparate groups to work together and to work in harmony. I've seen bridges to folks who just never really talked to each other or knew each other or trusted each other. And it's encouraging. And I think if we can maintain that sense of mutual respect for each other, we will be just fine. It's been a wonderful awakening to see so many people working together.
Taylor.
So for me, it's, and one, this has been a great call. Thank you so much for pulling this together. But again, just to provide a local perspective, what I would say is just building off of what everyone else here has already said. It's been amazing to see the sense of community that is growing out of this. And what I would just say to anyone who's watching this, support local businesses. As we talk about a retail and hospitality crisis, I mean, that's the most important thing I think that certainly we can do here in Virginia Beach now is shop local, support local business, and we'll get through this as a community.
And Nicole?
Definitely agree with all the comments made here. You know, I think from a regional perspective, I've been so impressed with the collaboration across all localities here in Hampton Roads. And I think that the region is really positioning itself to come out even stronger following the crisis than it was before. We had a very good foundation of regional cooperation, and I think we were able to leverage that, particularly through our 757recovery.com effort. And I think, again, we'll all come out of this stronger than before.
Agreed. Well, as the saying goes,
Hey, Nick, one quick
Hey.
comment.
Sure.
You tossed up to me that we're doing an event on Sunday, and one of our trusted and great community partners is Cox Communications. So we are grateful that you're joining us, and come out to Euclid Avenue on Sunday afternoon, starting at noon, and we'll have a great time.
We'll have
Do
a
good
great
stuff.
time. Thank you, Gil. Looking forward to it. For those who can make it, please do drive by, bring supplies, bring donations, or just bring love and encouragement, right? We're all in this
Indeed.
together. So with that, we're at the end of our time. I can't believe our time is up. You know, I love talking to all of you. Stephen, Miles, Gil, Taylor, Nicole, thank you so much for your leadership. Thank you for showing up for our communities. Thank you for all that you're doing for people at this time. We certainly appreciate it. And for those of you who are viewing online or on your view, thank you so much for joining us. And please know that you are in good company with us at Cox. Thank you and have a great day.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you.